Thank you for that lovely introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 4:52 Now Express Bodmin service to Now, calling out the past, the future, and with a little bit of luck, in about half an hour, we'll be arriving into the now. Before we get started, a quick security notice. As you know, extremely obvious, we're on a 1930s steam railway train, and so there's no CCTV cameras. So if you see anything, and I mean anything beautiful, please notify a passenger next to you immediately, or a member of staff. Have you've seen something beautiful? Great. Brilliant. Bless you. You're beautiful too. Oh, it's going to be that kind of journey. I can relax now. That's great. But wouldn't it be lovely that instead of being primed for suspicion and fear, we were invited to notice the beauty and wonder? But sometimes we can't notice beauty and wonder. Sometimes on journeys, we pack too much. And when we pack too much, there's not enough space for discovery and learning. Someone once said to me, whenever you go on a journey, take a really big bag and pack barely nothing. Because when you pack barely nothing, it says something of your intent. It leaves space for discovery, for learning. And it's not just the physical baggage we bring, it's also the mental baggage, the expectations, the anticipation. And so before we start in earnest our journey together, I'd like us just to let go of some of that mental baggage. So if you'll amuse me, I invite you all please to close your eyes. I'm going to have just a few lovely deep breaths, connect with our bodies, long, deep breaths. And as you breathe out, I'd like you to let go of the fact that you're a bit peed off that you thought you were going to be going forwards and you're actually facing backwards, and that freaks you out whenever you're on a train. Let go of the relationship problems, the expectations, the queue for the bar, whatever might be going. Just let go of that mental baggage and create space. And as you've got your eyes closed, I'd like you to bring to your mind one of the most amazing journeys you've ever been on. Don't worry about editing. The first one that comes to your mind is great. It's there for a reason. And think about the people that are on that journey with you, if indeed there is anyone. The sounds, the smells. And what is it that makes this journey so amazing? See if you can pinpoint that in your mind. Okay, when you're ready, please open your eyes and turn to the person next to you and just for a few minutes share with each other not just what the journey was, but really pinpoint why was it so amazing? What made it so amazing? Enjoy. Well, I've also been on some amazing journeys myself, from where to start, the mountains of Uganda with the US Department of State, to circumambulating the Golden Temple with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That also ended in a sore foot, actually, but that's another story, and also a failure. So we should have another talk about failure. But probably the most amazing journey that I've ever been on was the 8:06 service from King's Cross to Bradford, the train. And it's true. And it was a few years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I was going to see my best mate, Gib. Now, Gib is mischief personified. Got those twinkly eyes, the mischievous grin, and we always got up to all sorts together. And it was a Friday like today. I was skiving off work, felt a little bit naughty, and I went on the train. And normally I'm a facing forwards guy. Any other facing forwards people? Thank you for admitting it. Everyone else thinks we're crazy, by the way. It's okay, I'm with you. But on this particular journey, there was something about it that I wanted to face back. I felt in more of a reflective mood. And I didn't really fancy speaking to anyone, so I did the whole bag trick, where you put your bag next to you, just as a little subtle British way of saying, please don't sit next to me. Unfortunately, that lasted all of 7 minutes, when someone, and it wasn't even a busy train, that was the thing that really got to me. A guy came over and said, can I please sit there? And I moved my bag and I looked at him, and the first thing I noticed, I don't know whether you can relate to this, just had really kind eyes. Really kind eyes. So I thought, okay, I took a deep breath and he sat next to me. And we got chatting. I spoke to him about Gib and all the mischief that we got up to. And he spoke about his family and friends. And his name was John, and he worked at the post office. One of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. And we were laughing and joking. And after a while, he confided in me. And he said to me, Simon, a few weeks ago, my mum passed away. And on her deathbed, she said to me, son, there are 3 types of people in this world. They're adders, like Gib. Now, there are people that whenever you see them, whenever you speak to them, your soul smiles a bit with every encounter. You feel energized, added to. And then there are subtractors. They might be someone you work with, even someone in your family. And it's as though to add to their own energy, they take something from you. Feel diminished, less than. And then there are multipliers. Now, if you're really lucky, you might be married to a multiplier. It might be someone in your family. It might be someone you meet once in your life on a train, for example, like John the postman. And they set off something in you disproportionate. The multiplier effect. Life will never be the same again. Now, I don't know about you, what just popped into your mind, but when I first heard this story, my mind instantly went to all of the subtractors in my life. I was just like, yeah, you, And one of the people was my dad. We had a pretty complex relationship with him, but for most of my childhood, he was a subtractor to me. He didn't mean any harm, but he had his catchphrases. Like, we've all got our catchphrases, and his was, don't be stupid, don't be ridiculous, don't be an idiot. And so, malleable son looking for love from role model father, I grew up feeling that I was stupid, ridiculous, an idiot. And I realized that the wisdom of John's mum on her deathbed was not who other people are to us, but who we are to other people. And when I deeply reflected, after blaming my dad for being such a subtractor to me, when I really reflected and realized that I could have been a subtractor to him, it transformed our relationship because I determined to be an adder or a multiplier in his life. That was actually something that I could do myself. We're now the best of friends. I've just returned from safari with him in Kenya. We get on so well. And my journey so far tells me that luck doesn't happen when we're looking for good stuff to happen to us. It happens when we're focusing on what good stuff we can bring to others. So we're going to be coming in soon to Bodmin, in general, the location of the infamous lunatic asylum. We're supposed to go through a tunnel at that point. I don't know what happened there. The lunatic asylum. And tomorrow is a full moon, everyone. So any of you who've got small children know what a crisis this is when there's a full moon, because no sleep is had. And poor old Gib, I told you that he was crazy and mischief, and I guess some people would call him a lunatic as well. He really had his moments. He started seeing things, like maybe even the beast of Bodmin Moor. He would have claimed to have seen that. He got arrested scaling the Houses of Parliament, naked. Get more than a sore foot with that, William. So he got arrested for that. Fortunately, not in prison for too long. And he started to lead his life according to the roll of a dice. I don't know if you've heard of the book The Dice Man before. It's about this psychologist who's either very bored or unhappy with his lot and thinks it's a really good idea to make all big life decisions based upon the roll of a dice. You can see where this is going. So Gib, inspired by this, decided to be the dice man, and I can't probably legally share with you what happened with the rolls of the dice, but the thing that I'd like to extract from that is that every single option that he put on the side of the die involved him doing something. It involved agency. He realized that luck doesn't come through sitting or standing still. It comes through agency. There's a pilgrim on a mission to the top of a mountain to see an enlightened being of wisdom. I can see you.
What do you mean by agency? Sorry.
Agency is in not being a passive recipient, being a mover, actually being an agent of change. I mean agency in that context. Thank you for asking that. I don't mean setting up a conglomerate. Yeah. So this pilgrim is a pilgrimage to see an enlightened being of wisdom at the top of a mountain. The problem is that the top of the mountain is obscured by the clouds, and he's walking for hours and hours. He's getting exhausted, and he doesn't know what to do. And he sees this old lady bent over double on the side of the mountain. And so he walks up to her and he says, "Excuse me, can you tell me how long it will take to get to the top of the mountain?" And she says nothing. So now the pilgrim's thinking that she's a little bit hard of hearing. That happens to all, no problem. "Excuse me, can you tell me how long it's going to take to get to the top, please?" Nothing, niente, nada. So now he's just assuming that she's bloody rude. So he starts going back up the mountain, and she shouts to him, 2 days! It will take you 2 days to get to the top. He trudges back down and said, "Why didn't you tell me that when I asked you?" "You were standing still when you asked. I could only tell how long it would take when you started to move." Martin Luther King Jr. said that faith is having the courage to take the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And part of leading a lucky life is finding that courage, take the first step, spark up that conversation with a stranger with kind eyes.
What do you think the definition of luck is?
What do I think the definition of luck is?
I heard a good one, but I'd like to see what your definition.
No pressure. I think I'd say it's participating in positivity. So that's what I mean by the agency. Luck is not, for me, in my experience, a passive thing that happens to us. It's a thing that we participate with.
So the definition I heard was luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
Okay, there's some agency in that. Yeah. Bit kind of strategic management speak, but I like it. That's good. That's good. Back on the 806 to Bradford, it's now 10:46. John the postman has left ages ago, and I'm back in my reflective facing back stage. And I'm into my own mind and I'm into my own heart and feeling a bit down. You see, the day before, I got a phone call from Gibbs' mum. And normally when I get a phone call from Gibbs' mum, I prepare myself quickly with my portfolio of excuses about where he might be, or could be, and all as well. But this was a different conversation. You see, there was a reason that he'd been acting particularly strangely these last few years. It turns out that he had a brain tumour and he only had a few days left to live. And that's why I was on the train to go and see him in Bradford. So I went into the hospice and his big wavy hair had all been shaven off or fallen out. He still had those mischievous sparkly eyes. He couldn't speak. Sometimes you don't need to. After a while of communicating without words, I looked at him in the eye. I told him I loved him, kissed him on the cheek, and left. And that was the last time I saw him. On the journey back, I decided to face forwards because I felt filled with Gib. I told you he was an adder. I felt filled with him and I felt optimistic. I felt he's going to be with me on this journey wherever the destination is. I think he'd probably like that because he wouldn't have to pay for a ticket. So I think he'd quite enjoy the mischief of getting away with the journey. But I felt optimistic. And why is that so important? After 27 years away from his family, locked in jail, Nelson Mandela still was optimistic. He said that part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed towards the sun, keeping one's feet moving forwards. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not give up to defeat, for that way lay despair and death. Mandela knew it, Gibb knew it. You should have seen the options on the side of the dice. He was an optimist, and he knew the power of optimism. We know that being a pessimist is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Being an optimist is strategically helpful, and it's just so important to face forwards. I had an opportunity to really have this optimism tested a few weeks later. A startup, Global Tolerance, which was a communications agency I set up, it was beginning to falter. Only after just a couple of months, it was beginning to falter. I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent, and I was staring at the forms to sign on for the dole. My whole journey to Global Tolerance, I used to be in an advertising agency, lunch at the Ivy, expense account, company car. It was all awesome, but I was tearing myself in two. And I nearly got arrested, and that's a whole nother story for that. But a la Gibb. No nudity involved though. I was tearing myself in two, so I made a decision of the heart to set up an organisation committed to positive social change. And there was something about this journey that it felt right. I got a phone call just as I was about to sign on for the dole, inviting me to lead a workshop in Barcelona. So I was on top of a mountain in Barcelona. It wasn't a paid gig, it was expenses only, but I was 25 and it was Barcelona, for goodness sake. It was La Ramblas. I was going to do this. It felt right for all kinds of reasons, for the head and the heart. So I went there. I were in the mountains of Mount Montserrat, 30 kilometers northwest of Barcelona, and it was me, a youth group, some organisers on a deserted mountain, no one else. Friday afternoon, just like this, outside a Benedictine monastery, everyone's singing, and it's an interfaith group, and everyone thinks it's a really good idea to have an interfaith welcoming ceremony with everyone from the different faiths singing or saying something from their own traditional religion. What an awesome, beautiful idea, except the fact that I was the only Jew. And Cohen is a big deal in Judaism, and I've been a rubbish Jew. I have, and I didn't know what to do, because the only Hebrew I knew was the prayer for the bread and the prayer for the wine. There was no bread, and I was with a bunch of 14-year-olds, so there was definitely no wine. So I felt the pressure. Everyone's like holding hands, singing Urdu. Everyone's like, and I'm like, what do I do? Prayer for the bread, prayer for the wine. And I just don't want to blag it in case someone else knows Hebrew. So what do? I look out the corner of my eye, and there's this dude wearing a skull cap, a yarmulke. And I just ran up to him and I was like, hi, I'm Simon Cohen. Cohen, you know, brother from another mother. How you doing? And I explained to him my predicament. And I just said, like, please, you've got to help me out. He looked at his watch, he's like, I've got about 5 minutes, that's it. And he came into the circle and he introduced himself as a rabbi from Jerusalem. Yeah! And he stepped into the circle and he sung with the most heart-piercing, beautiful voice, Psalm 23. The sun was going down over the mountains. Everyone was in tears, hugging each other. I was like, yeah, completely nailed it. It was, at that moment, the reason why he only had 5 minutes is because he had to go and bring in the Friday night, the Sabbath, with the local community at the bottom of the mountain. And it was at that moment when I just submitted that when you follow your heart, you find your way. I submitted that when you follow your heart, the universe, the world, even rabbis conspire in your favor. It's the way. So yes, absolutely. Focus on the service of others for a lucky life. Absolutely. Find the courage to take that first step and be truly, deeply optimistic and forward-facing about the destination on the journey. But the fuel for that whole journey is the language of the heart. Follow your heart and you'll find your way. The most amazing journey that you've ever been on, even you, William, is right now. It's right now. Zen Buddhists don't think of time in a linear fashion of past, present, and future. They just think of time as a perpetual series of now moments. Well, soon we're going to be arriving into now. And so I'd like you to be optimistic, to find the courage to take that first step, to have a courageous conversation with a fellow passenger. Follow the language of the heart. And please, 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 if you notice beauty anywhere, notify a fellow passenger straight away. Thank you very much, everyone. And enjoy the gin. Looks great.